So these are the 4 books that I read in February. So we had The Color of Magic by Terry Pratchett, Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas, Savage Fae by Suzanne Valenti and Caroline Peckham, and then Of Darkness and Light by Ryan Cahill. As far as The Color of Magic goes, it was a lot of fun. I do like Discworld, I really like those books, but this one, it was super obvious it was an early on book, and people talk about that all the time, that early on books or the first book an author puts out doesn't work that well. This one felt very disjointed, and it was described as kind of episodic. It was written in 4 parts, and each one was just very different from the last, and it did have a disjointed feel. I mentioned recently that this one felt as if it was a parody novel more than any of the other Discworld books. Most of the other Discworld books that I've read had their own story and their own thing going on, but this one really did feel like a parody of sword and sorcery. The classic genre where you've got the big hero, the barbarian man who goes out into the ancient temples and saves the heroine or whatever, stuff like that. And it felt like this one was kind of picking that apart and picking apart other kind of classic novel stereotypes and just making a parody on all of that. There were some great characters in this book that I absolutely loved. I loved Death. I loved the luggage. It actually made me laugh several times, just kind of the way that it worked. And I did laugh out loud in this book. Not as much as in his later books, but it was still enjoyable. So I read Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas because I posted a video that let the viewers vote on what book I was going to read, and that one won significantly. So I pushed through and I read the whole thing to give it a solid shot. And just like the Color of Magic one, this was her first book, and she wrote it when she was very, very young. And you could really tell throughout the writing that it was rough and it was kind of hard. And I knew that going in, and you kind of have to give an author allowance in their first book sometimes. So I didn't hold the rough writing against her. I understood that she wrote it when she was young, and so that didn't bother me all that much. But personally, I did not like the main character, and that's kind of a big thing for me. If I'm not invested in the main character or what's going on, I don't really care what they're doing. So that was kind of a big hit for me in this book, and why I really didn't want to continue on with the series. The storyline that it was building wasn't exactly gripping to me, and I just didn't care to continue on with Celaena and the rest of her story. So Savage Fae is book 2 in a series that my wife absolutely loves. Those 2 authors, Suzanne Valenti and Caroline Peckham, are some of her absolute favorites, and they are really, really funny. She loves these books so much that we've been going through a bunch of them together, and it's been a really, really fun experience to do that with my wife and to be able to experience and really see the books that she likes. And I enjoy doing it with her, sharing stuff that she loves. This isn't necessarily the type of book or type of series that I would read on my own, but these authors, honestly, are hilarious. They're so out of pocket and so ridiculous, and I find myself laughing several times. Honestly, I am just really enjoying spending that time with my wife and being able to share that with her. So the last book I read this month, or listened to, was Of Darkness and Light, book 2 in the Bound and Broken series by Ryan Cahill. These books just feel like classic fantasy. They're just great. You have dragons, you have elves, dwarves, humans, those types of things. I've always said that if you're a fan of Eragon and The Wheel of Time, this is a great series to read. It almost felt like they took those 2 and just kind of mashed them together. And he's making a really, really great storyline. The first book did feel a little bit too copied, but it's branching out in the second book, and I've been told that the third one gets even better. This was probably my favorite book that I read this month. It wasn't the most amazing book I've ever read, but it was fun, it was interesting, I want to continue on with the series, and the ending. I made a video about it earlier, and I loved the ending. The twist, the reveal that happened made me so happy. It was done so well. It was one of those that you just say, I should have seen that coming. There were clues throughout the entire book, and when it happened, I actually audibly gasped because it blew my mind that much. So I'm really excited to continue on with that series. It's going to be really good. I'm hoping it's going to be a lot of fun, but I want to read the novella The Exile that also takes place in that series. I don't have access to it right now, so I'm kind of putting this series on the back burner for a little while until I can read that one. So now I'm just looking forward to another good month of reading in March.